Y'all planning for this?
Welcome back, TPR Nation. Jamie Shalansky here in an episode of Worlds to Conquer, where we're going to dive into a sticky topic, which is, should I hire a family member? Some of you are resoundingly saying no, and the other ones are saying, well, maybe it would be a good idea. So we're going to unpack that. And as we go through, a disclaimer, since you don't know me, I am probably the most family-oriented person that you will ever meet in your entire life. When people ask me what my favorite job is, it is to be an aunt, to be a mom. I absolutely love being around my family. That being said, I also am a partner in a family-owned business. Our RIA, Shalansky and Associates, consists of 4 founding members. The founders being my mom and dad, Floyd and Rosa, and then now today at the helm, my brother, Micah Shalansky, and I run the company. My father is still involved, and my mom is still an excellent overseer, but a little bit less involved in the day-to-day operation. Being a family-owned firm is one of the greatest accomplishments of my dad's life. He's very family oriented, and it would make him so happy if all of the cousins that I have and the grandkids that he has were to come into the family owned business. This is an area of contention for our family because my dad would absolutely love it, and he would give each and every one of them a job. In fact, I've had a cousin intern for us on his way to becoming a CPA when he was originally starting out, and he makes the job offer constantly to family members to come join our practice and work for us, much to my brother and I's complete resistance. And there's a good reason for this. So we'll unpack the pros and cons of it, and I'll kind of give you a middle of the road decision, and you can figure out which one makes the most sense for you. So my dad wants to give a family member a job for nepotism alone, right? You have bloodline that is linked to us. Come join our family practice, and I will take care of you. My father, just for sense of background, is the eldest of 5. And in being the eldest, he's the one that forged out. He's the only one that started his own business and became the success that he is today. And with that being said, he feels an intense need to be able to take care and provide for the rest of his family. He wants to make sure that they're all taken care of. And the way that he expresses his love is by saying, I will take care of you through the business by giving you a job and showing you a career path and, making sure that you have food on the table, etc. And that's really important, right? It's super powerful. Our family priest told my brother one time that there were 3 stages of a man's life. In the first stage, he is really focused on relationships. So it's his relationship with his mom, and then as he, of course, sets out to find a relationship with his wife, and in that whole process. The second stage of a man's life is about wealth accumulation, right? And it's about being able to build in his professional career, to have assets, and to build his wealth portfolio, if you will. That third stage of a man's life, according to our family priest, is that it's all about legacy. What am I going to leave behind? And so for my father, the legacy aspect is really important to him right now. Who can I bring into the fold, and how am I going to leave it behind? And what lasts beyond my lifetime, which we've forbidden him from retirement. So dying's not even on the table for him. But I have a lot of apprehension about bringing kids, grandkids, cousins, etc. into the practice. The reason is the ways that I see this go wrong is that the company will have a need, and the family member will have a person that needs a job, and we will say, oh, I'm going to put the square peg in the round hole. And that doesn't always make sense. It sets both parties up for immediate failure. So for example, in our office, we could have an opening for a relationship manager. This is a people person. This is the person that runs the calendar, delivers exceptional client experiences, and is really charismatic and looks for unintentional ways to deliver value, right? So this is a very animated individual. And we could have a family member that is less animated, more introverted, and more recluse, need a job. And so my father will say, hey, these 2, we have an opening. This person's looking for a job. Boom, it's magic, right? And then this is where I see the chemistry start to break down, because you put a square peg into a round hole, and then you have to try to force it to fit. And it's never a good fit. It's either going to break the structural integrity of the box, or it's going to shave off pieces of that square that you're trying to shove inside of there. So I'm not a big fan of that. I say it all the time. No square pegs and round holes, right? You got to find the right fit. That way the company gets the best and you're able to deliver your best, right? And so a lot of times, one of the things if you're thinking about hiring a family member is drawing out that job description. What are those job duties? What are the details? What are the personality attributes that you need for that position? In our office, we use DISC. Jarvis, he uses Colby. Same kind of psychological format, just two different styles and techniques, right? I'm going to speak to DISC because that's what I know best. And DISC stands for D is dominant. This is a driver. Be bold, be brief, be gone. I is your high influence people. These are your people. These are very charismatic. They step into an elevator and come out with 3 new best friends, right? That they never met before. And then you have your high S, and your high S is a super steady person. This is a person that is consistent. This is a person that also has a very deadpan face a lot of the time. They'll come to work and you don't even know if their dog died or what tumultuous event is happening in their personal lives because they've just got a great poker face. And then you're going to have your compliance person. And think engineers, right? This is the people that are very compliant. The rules are the rules. Facts are facts. And feelings have to come second. Nothing is a dollar if it's 99 cents, right? It's 99 cents, not $1. So there's places in an organization for each one of those people. We all have 4 of those elements inside of us, but one leads and one is secondary. 2 of those are going to be our most strong ones. And so a lot of times what we'll see is, like I said, square peg, round hole. We didn't draw out the job duty. We didn't write the advertisement. We didn't talk about the skills, and we didn't talk about the personality that position would require of a candidate who was looking to get hired. Instead, we just said open job, person needs job, smash them together, and let's see what kind of disaster we can create. So be really intentional about it. If you are considering hiring a family member, and this could be a sister-in-law, a niece, a nephew, a cousin, a daughter, a grandkid, write out that job duty, write out the job roles. Second power move that I would tell you, if you're a solo practitioner, this becomes harder, but do not be their direct supervisor. Make them report to somebody else. This will put a third party in between you and that employee. One of the reasons that we won't hire a lot of the grandkids that are coming to age is because they're too familiar with us. They don't see us as bosses. They see us as aunts and uncles. And at some point, that's going to translate into the workplace. And in the workplace, it's not appropriate. If we say something has to get done, they have to do it. And they can't run to their grandparents to try to get out of it or change it or create a bigger problem in the organization than what we hired them to do. So make sure you're setting good expectations. If you're that solo advisor and you're still thinking of putting that person in there, then create before they start benchmarks. Here's what you have to do. And I don't want to put you in a position that you're miserable or that you're not going to excel at. So here's the job duties, here are the details, and here's your scorecard. What do they need to do in order to excel at this role? Because not all family members would be bad employees. It's just whether or not you're setting them up for success, right? And you really have to assess that. So ahead of time, where are the benchmarks? What do they have to do? What are the job expectations? What gets them fired? What gives them permission to say, hey, thanks for the opportunity, but this job just wasn't for me, right? And you can't have somebody underperforming. And when it becomes a family member and they're underperforming, it becomes a really sticky situation. It makes Christmas super uncomfortable, particularly because there's some matriarch looking at you with their eyebrow raised and thinking what kind of demon boss you are because you fired favorite granddaughter, favorite niece, sister-in-law, and now you've made social situations super uncomfortable for your family. So really think about what you're getting into and have those parameters drawn up ahead of time. It's not always a bad idea. It just could be, right? And also think about it like this. If that person's looking for a job, there are many financial advisors that are hiring across the country, right? We have such an intense labor shortage in this country. So would you recommend that person to go work with one of your peers? And if you wouldn't recommend them to go work with one of your peers, that's probably a good warning sign that you should not hire them either, because now it's going to be even more complicated for you because you wouldn't even refer them to someone that you knew in confidence. And in our family, we're really big about kids, especially as they come of age. They need to go work for somebody else. And we always told the kids, we have 3 of them, Jazz, Joey, and Lane. They're all about the same age group, Jazz being the oldest and Joey and Lane being the same age. As they were coming of age, we said, hey, the 3 of you, you guys have got to go get jobs somewhere else, and it's got to be at some place you hate. And you could think you love it at first, but you got to come to hate it later. Now, why would we tell them? Why would we tell them to go get a job at some place they hate? Because at 14, you don't think you're going to hate anything. You think your parents are ridiculous, your aunts and uncles are ridiculous, your grandparents are ridiculous, and you've got this under control. So you go out and you get some minimum wage job that uses and abuses you and puts you at the worst time of day to work. You're missing out with friends. You don't have enough money. And you're thinking, my God, how can anyone live on this wage? And then we drive home the point you can't live on a minimum wage. And it's not the government's responsibility to increase the minimum wage. It's your responsibility to go get other skill sets to make you valuable so that you earn more than the minimum wage. And so in our family, we're really big about hardworking. That is the number one skill that we want to instill in all of the kids. So when Jazz, Joey, and Lane came of age, they all had to go get jobs somewhere else. They could not start working for Shalansky & Associates, our RIA. Why? It would set them up for terrible expectations. One, they would be overcompensated most likely based on their skill set, because we'd notice how much the minimum wage really grossly underpaid them according to the goals of what they wanted to achieve, and it wasn't right. And they also needed to have values and skills that would warrant that wage. They needed to go get those somewhere else, not just because we felt bad and wanted to give them something. Two, they need other bosses. They need to know how other people work and how the co-environment works with other peers. They had all of these experiences outside of our Shalansky & Associates family firm that will be invaluable later should they in their adult life decide to come into the practice. And they needed to learn it from somebody else. They needed a stranger in a uniform. They needed the highs, they needed the lows, they needed to know who was a good leader, who was a bad leader, what makes you a good employee, and what makes you an exceptional employee. They also needed to know how hard it was to get a pay raise. My son worked for a company, was one of these indoor amusement parks, that has the go-kart and the arcades and laser tag and all that kind of jazz. And when he started, his wage was $12. He worked there for 2 years, and corporate came in and gave him a 50-cent raise. And he was elated to get a 50-cent raise. He was elated up until the point that he realized his coworkers who were older than him got a $1 raise. When he asked them why, they said, well, you don't really need the money. That was a decision that they had made about his economic status because of the family he came from. He needed that lesson to be taught from somebody else. And this is really important to understand, right? Because as a financial advisor, a lot of times your kids and spouses and nieces and nephews are going to hear from other people in your social communities that you're wealthy. They're wealthy by product of being close proximity to you. And that can be really difficult for them to digest, especially if you come from a hard family like ours, right? Where one person's wealth does not translate into somebody else's. And if you want an economic success of your own, you have to go out and earn the right to that success. So he had to learn that lesson from somebody else, and it stung. It stung him really, really bad. But it also taught him how difficult it was in a lot of different sectors to get a raise. And then second of all, what is a raise worth? What is your value? And over time, it didn't take long after that experience when they literally physically patted him on the head and told him he was fine with a 50-cent raise for him to say, you know what? I now hate this job. I now hate this job because I hate the leadership behind it, and I want more for myself. What do I have to do to go earn a higher wage and get a better paying job in a better environment? And people say this a lot, right? You don't leave a job, you leave a boss. And he needed to learn that. And if you are considering hiring family, so just like in this situation here where I'm talking about my son, he needs to know how he's responsible for his pay raises. I don't raise wages every single year. I raise wages based on the value that you bring to the organization. You bring more value, you get higher income. That's the direct correlation. And I needed him to know that every single year when he goes in for a review or there's a cost of living adjustment, that doesn't constitute a raise necessarily. He needs to figure figure out how to go earn a raise based on the value that he brings in organization. If you are choosing to hire a family member in any capacity, you also owe it to them to give them the ability to know how they can improve their value to the organization and therefore earn more money. And this could either be direct salary or bonus compensation. I've seen a myriad mixture of both of those. If you have experience yourself, jump into the Backstage Pass or the Invictus Forum online and share with the community of financial advisors that are looking for other ways to compensate their employees in non-traditional ways. But it's so important for a person to understand how they can improve in their own careers. And a lot of times when I see people hire family members, this is where it blows up, is that you, as the employer, are now looking at that employee who's also your family member, and you have a purview that most employers don't have, which is how they spend their money socially, and what their economic needs are. And that can make you even more benevolent as an employer than you should be based on their skill set. Or that can reverse itself and say, I'm not giving you more compensation because you're just blowing it in your personal life. So why would I pay you more? So you really have to kind of think about that. Are you guilty of doing that? Are you treating them like you would treat every single other employee that worked for you? And then you have to also set up good expectations. So we talked about compensation, we talked about career paths, and all of the parameters that you need to set for that person in order for them to achieve a level of success and for them to reasonably earn more income over time. These are really good parameters to set right at the get-go so you don't put that employee family member up in a position of failure and they don't fail you, which is something they don't want to do either. They know it's a big opportunity that you gave them, even though you might not always feel the gratitude reciprocated. So how else should you navigate this situation? You should also put a third party in place, right? You want to have somebody else, if possible, in charge of being their immediate supervisor. And that puts a little barrier between you. But let's just say that you're a solo practitioner and you only have that one family member that's working with you. Again, job duties, responsibilities, career paths, making sure the compensation schedule that you arrange together, either they're getting a bump up in base because they provided more value, or maybe you're doing some type of incentive compensation, even for unlicensed people. Have that in writing between the two of you. One of the things when I do bonus compensation, I also love to talk about eligibility. A huge mistake that I see financial advisors repetitively make, and I'm not just talking solo practitioners or somebody early in their career, these are generally top financial advisors that produce around the country, is that they give a bonus compensation based on gross revenue and a certain percentage to that employee with no eligibility requirements other than maintaining employment. Well, what happens is somebody that starts off with that, when that financial advisor smashes their goals and they feel that a lot of that effort came from their own direct efforts versus the employee's help, the employee is now still entitled to a bigger bonus compensation. So again, use the forum, jump in line, share what you're thinking about, get other financial advisors' perspectives that have real life industry experience structuring these arrangements so you can avoid the pitfalls and create an incentive compensation plan that you feel good honoring 5, 10, or hopefully 15 years down the line, right? So make sure you're using advantage of that forum to jump in there and really dissect this. A lot of financial advisors hire family members. It is not always a terrible experience, but you, as the boss, as the employer, as the advisor, have the responsibility to set it up for success. And the only way that you can do that is if you show them the dignity and professionalism of treating them as if they are a regular employee that you are not related to.
Hold on before we go. Something that you need to know. This isn't tax, legal, or investment advice. That isn't our intent. Information designed to change lives. Financial planning can make you thrive. Start today, don't think twice. Be a better husband, father, mother, and